Hi, Dinesh. Welcome to the Animal Tone podcast.
It's lovely to be here, Claudia.
I just want to bring this back to the theme of politics. Why is having this kind of understanding of the scales of violence, the different forms of violence, why is this important when talking about animals and politics?
That's a great question. I think it is because violence is a fundamental building block of political theory. So it's an important concept within political theory. And I would say it's largely been under theorized in the animal space. So because this word hasn't been used, and if we read the kind of early animal rights work in from animal ethics, largely this word does not appear, it is not used. And I think to me that this is a useful word for political theorists. There's also a different question, which is how do we understand violence, right? And even that debate around what is violence, actually, animals allows us to understand, or looking at animals allows us to understand that debate in different ways. So to give you one example, we often mistake the form of violence with what violence actually is itself. So to make that clearer, we often think about violence as a harmful practice or relation. So somebody takes a knife and cuts me, that's violence. But we miss that actually what is violence is something else that is tied up with the tools of violence, which is the experience of a radically non-consensual act. That is often what violence is. So if you've experienced violence, and I hope listeners you haven't, it's this horrible feeling of a radical form of non-consent. Is the moment that you lose control, somebody else takes control, relations become radically one-directional, and there is no escape at that moment of violence. And to me, that is what violence is as a relation. Different tools are used to make violence happen, but as we know from lots of analyses of violence, sometimes you don't need a tool. Maybe an individual has so much power over another that they're able to, through psychological manipulation or whatever means, coerce that individual into a relation of violence. So to me, thinking through violence as a political relation forces us to think about what is the form of violence in this particular context. And we start to see with animals, actually, there are lots of unique forms of violence that are used against animals that don't necessarily have a replica in human affairs. But we understand them as violence because of that relation, because literally for animals, there is no escape. It is a one-directional relationship that we're looking at. And for that reason, I would call those relations of violence.